There are growing fears that the Lake St. Lucia Estuary might lose its World Heritage Site status. Scientists are unhappy with the artificial opening of the KZN estuary to the sea, and they've expressed this to Environment Minister Barbara Creecy. The group says the department at the Ecological Wetland Park Authority have ignored scientific recommendations. The St. Lucia wetlands were the first place in South Africa to be declared a United Nations World Heritage Site. To talk more on all of this, I'm joined by Nicolette Forbes, a senior scientist at Marine Estuarine Research. Very good morning to you. Tell us more about what we are seeing happening there and your concerns.
Good morning, Jane. Thank you for having me. Yes, as I have said, as you've just mentioned, the Ecological Authority seems to have abandoned its own management strategy by breaching the estuary in January, and that flew in the face of a whole lot of scientific evidence on which that strategy was based. So in addition to studies that happened between 2010 and 2017, specifically designed to look at the restoration of the Lake St. Lucia, there's a whole lot of historical evidence and science that was also brought into play. And between all of that was used to determine a restoration strategy. And what this has done is really turned that on its head, halted it, and taken it away from a scientifically robust and data-driven process.
Okay, tell us what the damage is being done to it by opening the mouth. What's the problem there?
Well, the problems are twofold. One is the ecological issues, because you're now starting to interfere with a natural process that was set up by this restoration program. What both the studies and the court case, which looked at this issue, determined was that really the artificial breaching of the estuary needed to stop, because this had been done for many years in the past, and it was determined that this was driving degradation of the estuary. So the outcome was that this needed to stop, and the system should be allowed to pursue a natural functioning. And there was always the idea that there would be a little bit of hiatus. The system needs to readjust to a whole new management regime, or its own processes need to kick in. And the rains that we've just had over the summer would have been part of resetting the system. So by interfering with that, what you've done is completely taken away that natural progression into restoration. But also, more importantly, there was no monitoring being done that I know of, and we have asked for that as the body of scientists, and nothing has been forthcoming up until now. There was no monitoring being done when they did it. There was no monitoring done during the event. So it's very difficult to say what the impact is, but from what we know of that history,
why would they do this? I mean, you've warned them, you wrote to Barbara Creecy. How can they justify this? What have they said to you?
We have not had any response back to our letter. We were told that an independent scientific panel, and that was a media statement that Barbara Creecy put out, would be put together, and they would come up with some sort of assessment of what had been done. And to date, we have not yet seen anything of those findings, or of the panel, or who is actually on that panel. So it's difficult to answer that question, Jane.
And it's worrying, isn't it? I mean, you hear of this not only in this instance, but in other incidences where, you channel a panel of experts give advice after years of research, and it is just merely ignored. Tell me, Nicolette, how important this ecosystem is, and if we were to lose it, what would it mean?
Well, this is 60% of the estuarine resource of the country. So St. Lucia makes up 60% of the area of all of our 300 estuaries along the coast. And that's everything from the Orange River right around to Cozy Bay here in KZN. So when you knock this estuary on its head, or you don't do something to reinstate it, you're having a huge impact on regional resources as well, not just on that estuary. And just to add that the panel was not a panel. We're talking about the findings of 28 really high-profile scientists that have spent many years looking at this estuary. So the recommendations that came out of the study was really a very well thought out and very collaborative project. There was both stakeholders and scientists that were involved in that process.
Okay, very disturbing. Nicolette Forbes, we're going to be keeping our focus on this, but thanks very much for talking to us.